Are we live? Are we doing it? We are live. How's everyone doing? Happy Monday to you all. It is officially home league draft time, home league draft season. I don't know about you guys, but I've been drafting. I've got 3 drafts done over the last week or so, and I've got about 2 more home leagues to go through. And hello, baseball forever. Good to see you again. Graham, draft on the 31st. Wish me luck. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you're using our draft guide, though, too. Draft guide's going to help you out. Just a little shameless plug. Just had to throw that in there. But again, welcome in, y'all. We are going to be doing a underdog draft. We will be doing a Q&A, all of your fantasy questions. Yo, Zane Productions, what's good? What's going on, my guy? Any and all fantasy questions we are here to discuss. We are going to answer. And Yannick from Germany. Hey, we have an international audience. That is pretty cool. Shout out to you. Thanks for joining. It's got to be pretty late over in Germany. That is, I am very surprised that you are still awake for this, but I'm glad that you're tuning into this. What is going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Nathan, how do you feel about my running backs, Achane, Derrick Henry, Breece Hall? I love those running backs. I love Breece Hall, love Achane, Derrick Henry this year. You know, I have expressed my skepticism about a 30-year-old, running back that's changing teams now, but at the same time, I mean, it's Derrick Henry, right? Like you can't really go wrong with Derrick Henry. What do you like? Bijan Robinson? Of course I do. Everyone loves Bijan this year. So keep asking your questions and I will do my best to answer most of them. Draft strategies, where I'm picking from this pick. What should I do here? Nathan, of course, man. Of course, I got you. Ask away. Any and all questions are welcome and valid. I'm here to help you out and help you prepare for your draft. If you are not on Underdog Fantasy and you want to join with me, if you want to do a little like quick mock draft with me, you can use the code fellas on Underdog and you can join a draft. I believe I want to do I kind of want to do a mini schnauzer, just a quick $3 entry. It is a fast draft, so they go by quick. But if you want to partake, you can use the code fellas again. I will join in roughly 15 seconds. And hopefully I can see you and we can draft together. That would be pretty cool. It's 2 a.m. over here, but hey, doing an app and being productive in the night is something I like the last days anyway. Hey, it works. Hey, some of us are night owls. I would consider myself a night owl as well, especially with our draft guide work and all that kind of stuff. I've taken some late nights and some early mornings. That is just how it rolls sometimes here. Should I trade away Debo? I would not. I mean, unless the prices or what you're getting back is hard to deny, I would. So, by the way, here we go. We're going to join in a mini Schnauzer draft. We have, let's see, waiting on 5 people, waiting on 4 people, 3 people now. 4th pick, who you going for or who you think gonna fall? I think in a 4th pick, in that kind of scenario at the 4th pick, you really can't go wrong with like a Breece or a Bijan. You can go with an Amon-Ra St. Brown. You can go with a Justin Jefferson, and I think you're pretty set there. I would expect McCaffrey, CeeDee, Tyree to go, but one of Jefferson or the 2 running backs, I think, is definitely the way to go to the 4th pick. And speaking of the 4th pick, we're here at the 5th pick in this draft. Let me adjust my screen so you guys can actually kind of see better what's going on here. Let's see. Can we zoom in anymore? Okay. We're going to do that. And then we're going to do a little skedaddle there. And I think that's the best that we're going to get it. Sweet. Yeah, back to more of your questions. I took ETN and Achane for some reason instead of Gibbs and 12-man PPR. Talked me off the ledge. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like the worst. Like, yeah, like Gibbs is, I mean, at least with like underdog best ball, right? Like he's the running back 4. Then you're looking at ETN. He's running back 11. Achane running back 7. I kind of like ETN and Achane a little more than just Gibbs alone, if that makes sense. Just because, like, ETN's going to be a volume guy. That Achane is just got massive week-to-week upside as we're on the clock here. Amon-Ra, Breece Hall, Justin Jefferson, Bijan. You can't really go wrong with any of these guys. I like to mix it up in the first round, at least in best ball, just because you can do so many drafts. We're going to go Breece Hall. We're just going to start running back here. His ADP has slowly been on the rise lately. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But again, back to ETN and Achane instead of Gibbs. I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, again, like I like that pairing. What would be your pair with Gibbs? That's then the other question too. So I don't think it's the end of the world, but I can definitely understand why, like, you see Gibbs and you're like, gosh, shoot, why did I take Gibbs? It makes sense. Is Caleb going to fall? I don't think he's going to fall. I just don't think people are necessarily going to be like pushing for him come draft time or whenever you are in your drafts. My man, appreciate it. Leaning towards running back first, of course. Yes. That is where we go. Graham, should I wait for on tight end in my draft? I think it really depends on one, how your league mates are drafting. But the other part of it is, there is really, like, you take a look at these like top 5 tight ends, right? You're looking at Laporta, you're looking at Kelsey McBride, Andrew Kincaid. Like, if you want to, you can throw in Pitts. Like, if you can get one of those guys, I think you go tight end. I don't think there's anything wrong. And especially, so like in best ball, though, it's a little bit different, right? Laporta and Kelsey, as you can see, their ADPs are early 4th. In your home leagues, they're probably going like middle of the second, late second, early 3rd. So it's a little more steep for those guys, but in best ball, it's a little more evened out. So I don't necessarily mind going tight end, especially if it's one of those 5. But if I miss out on those 5, my next best option then is Jake Ferguson. If I miss out on Ferguson, I'm then just punting, right? And then I'm just going to stream tight ends, until I can't anymore, essentially. I'm sure this league is legit. I believe all top running backs will be gone early. I'm debating CeeDee, Hill, St. Brown. Thoughts? As we're on the clock here, we got Breece here. Next best guy for me, Jalen Waddle. I think we have slowly been increasing the amount of positive talk that we have for Waddle. Like, yeah, last year was a disappointment. I think the injuries, kind of, they didn't necessarily set him up to fail, but it's going to be hard to play through injuries the entirety of the season with a contingent upside. That he's still going to be a top 15 guy too. Like, Waddle, you can't go wrong there. Back to this. So CeeDee, Hill, or St. Brown. Thoughts? I personally would go Hill, CeeDee, and St. Brown, like in that order. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with kind of following whatever platform's ADP that you use. Like, if it goes CeeDee, St. Brown, then Tyreek, which I don't know why it would, but if it does, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Blur just finished my 12-man PPR draft with 1 flex, 2 receiver. I got Love, Connor, and Kenneth Walker. Love that. Rashee Rice, St. Brown, London, Laporta with Brooks on IR. What do we think? Dude, for a 12-man PPR draft, that is sweet. I love Jordan Love where he goes and for where, he was a quarterback 5 last year. I think people are forgetting pretty quickly that he was a top 5 quarterback last year. Yeah, it was a slow start. It wasn't gross, or it wasn't pretty at first, but it came around, and dude looks like a legit baller now. And then you've got James Conner, who's going to be a workhorse and what is going to be a better than expected offense in Arizona. Ken Walker could be a 3-down back in Seattle. St. Brown, Rashee Rice with Drake London. Dude, that is a killer lineup. As we're on the clock again, not in love with really much on the board. I think we're going to go Mike Evans here. Yeah, we're going to go Mike Evans here just because I like him slightly more than DJ Moore. That's a tough one. Like, maybe I'm a big fan of Pacheco this year, but I rarely like the starts where I go double running back right out the gate, at least in best ball. So, Dan on Facebook, I took Eckler over Robinson. Am I crazy? He had one injured off year. Is he really cooked? Dan, are you talking Bijan Robinson or are you talking Brian Robinson? Because 2 very, very different players. Graham, I think the 7th pick is underrated. What do you think? I think what's the most underrated is the 6-7 spot. wherever the middle is in your draft is the most underrated, because you can you can scoop up whatever value is being passed on by other people in your leagues. I think the middle is very underrated. I think the beginning is most ideal. The middle is then the next best, and then the last, which, like, obviously, like, you know, you think about the draft order, like, you obviously want the you want to be at the top first. It makes sense in that way. But in years past, it's felt like, you know, you want the back half of the round picks because you can get a 2-for-1 essentially. This year, it's a little bit different. What are the vibes on Jonathan Brooks once his time comes around? I don't think it's going to be completely I don't think it's going to be completely his backfield. Um, once he comes back healthy, I think Chuba Hubbard will be just enough of a thorn in his side to, like, just cap his ceiling just a bit. But I really think that after this year, though, Jonathan Brooks is going to be a nice little player for the Panthers. Damn, Brian Robinson. See, here's the thing. I prefer Brian Robinson just because I think he's going to be on the, oh man, Isaiah Pacheco. Ooh, he took a tumble. Again, I prefer Brian Robinson because I think he's going to be on the goal line. But at the same time, with no other wide receiver on that team outside of Terry McLaurin, Eckler could have some sneaky receiving upside that we're just kind of overlooking. And if he comes back in a little, you know, if he's healthier than he was last year, I don't know, like, why can't Eckler, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's, you know, he could be the ETN of old, but, like, I mean, it's going to be better than he's going to finish better than where he's going. As we're on the clock here, Josh Allen's taking a tumble. Does Trey McBride fit in with our squad at all? Not really. T. Higgins. I think we're going to go T. Higgins here. We're just going to grab another receiver. I think I like that. I like that for our wide receiver 3. T. Higgins are much worse wide receiver 3s to have. So again, I'm not going to say that Eckler has top 10 outside, but, like, there's a path for Eckler to be kind of, you know, a nice little fancy piece this year. What are vibes on Brooks? Yep, we answered that. And let's see, Jerome Ford. Now that Chubb is on the PUP, Jerome Ford. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, because in the preseason, we didn't exactly see that, like, Jerome Ford was, like, the workhorse back in this offense, and I wouldn't expect him to be the workhorse back. I think Deonta Foreman is going to be involved just enough. But Jerome Ford is a nice little value, right? If you need, you know, let's say you do take a Jonathan Brooks and you're going to wait on Jonathan Brooks, you know, to, you know, kind of break out at some point this year, Jerome Ford is a great option because you can kind of pair that up as a, like, you get production now with Jerome Ford and then you get production later with Jonathan Brooks. I don't mind that at all. Dan, what about the Bengals backfield? Jeez, McBride took a tumble too, man. Alrighty, so we'll get to your question in just a second here, Dan. One pick, and then we are on the clock. Maybe we start looking to correlate just a little bit. Tampa plays Carolina. Miami plays Cleveland. Brees and Jets play. I think we are going to go. We're going to go Anthony Richardson, just because I think at this point in, okay, we're going to take Terry. I think Terry is one of those guys that, like, for your 4th wide receiver, and again in an offense where he's just going to be, he could drown in targets. I think there's nothing wrong with that. So what about the Bengals backfield? I don't necessarily like. I think Chase Brown is a nice little value in your home leagues, just because I think that his role can be, you know, a pass catching back in that offense. So there's some value to that. Zach Moss can be more early down goal line. There's some value there, but I think if we can blow out of proportion, right? Like, wow, look at all the work that Joe Mixon left behind in this offense. Chase Brown and Zach Moss are not going to fill the Joe Mixon void in that offense, because Joe Mixon is just leaps and bounds better than both of those guys. So I think there's value for where they go in the in drafts, right? Like Chase Brown over on Underdog, like, he's a running back 28. I don't mind that. Zach Moss running back 32. I don't mind that. Like, I think they're really nice depth pieces to have, but I struggle in putting any kind of, like, high expectation for them in fantasy this year. is Alvin Kamara going to be a sleeper pick? I don't know if it's necessarily a sleeper pick, but I think it's an unsexy pick that no one really wants to talk about. Like, that like he's good, like his receiving work, like he's going to be a solid option. So I don't think he's necessarily going to lose you anything, but I also want to acknowledge that like he might, like the days of league winner Alvin Kamara are probably over at this point. So I wouldn't call it a sleeper, but I also wouldn't say that like, like it's not that he's getting overlooked or anything. I just think that what you're getting with Alvin Kamara, and that's why. So as we are on the clock here in 2 picks here, let's keep going through some more questions. We have a German community with 34 leagues, at 34 winners, then get a final, get into a final, getting questions about the playoffs, and the winner of that quiz wins it all. Oh, that's sweet. That sounds like a ton of fun. Someone made analysis of the first round, and this is where the results. Is there any pick? Wow. We are definitely going to grab Anthony Richardson here. I do not care. Doesn't fit the team necessarily, but I do not care. That's to get almost a 10 pick slide on Anthony Richardson. I will scoop that up every day of the week. Is there any pick where you completely disagree? 101 Christian McCaffrey. Let's see here. You completely disagree with? No, not necessarily. I think maybe like if there is one pick that I wouldn't agree with per se, it would probably be Jamar Chase, just because I think Jamar is probably closer to the AJ Brown tier of wide receiver than Jefferson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. But at the same time, like someone might say like, hey, like Jamar Chase, like it's the talent Jamar Chase. Like that's definitely, why would you pass that up? I completely get that. So it's not the one that I necessarily like fully disagree with or completely disagree with, but that would be the one that like I would say like I maybe would have gone a different way. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Brees, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Saquon, maybe essentially like you push everyone behind Jamar, but in front of Brees up one spot, and then if that makes sense, that's probably my gripe here, or not my gripe. That sounds rude. You get what I'm saying, though. So, again, Richardson, Brees, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, and Terry McLaurin as we are on the clock here. No Cleveland player, no Carolina, no Denver, no Atlanta, Buffalo, Indy. I think we're just going to go James Conner here. We're going to grab our running back. Yeah, let's just grab James Conner. I 3-down guy. I think that's the way to go. We maybe could have gone Ferguson to grab our tight end, but at that point. Sorry for a little spam. No, you're all good. You're all good. No, I don't necessarily like completely disagree with anything there. Any concerns with Ayuk and Chase with contracts? Dave, great question. This is a fantastic question. Ayuk, I would say I'm a little concerned, not necessarily that like contracts won't get done. My concern is that they haven't been on the field practicing at all. So, and for me, I have been the more anti Brandon Ayuk guy this year, just because last year was hyper efficient. I think we're bound to see some regression, and the longer that he stays off the field, I think the more likely that we're going to see some regression. Chase, I think, can be elevated. Or I shouldn't say like elevated. I think he can still be okay just because it's Joe Burrow, Cincinnati, right? Like the offense goes through Joe. Sorry, that was kind of loud. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That is the offense in Cincinnati versus Ayuk. Shanahan is not afraid to put him in the doghouse. We've seen that happen before, and he's going to do whatever he can and whatever he will to to win games. So if there's one player that I have more concern about, it's definitely Brandon Ayuk. But again, just kind of general concerns of just like, guys, they just haven't been on the field at all really this offseason. So Jeff on Facebook, how do you feel about Stevenson as your running back 2? I don't hate it, but I also think that the ceiling is very, very capped just being in that New England offense. I just don't know where I don't know what the touchdowns are going to look like for that team. And I doubt that Ramondre, has massive touchdown numbers. Like, yeah, like volume is king. That's really about it. Right. So it's a very, it's a very meddling pick is the best way to say it. Like he's not gonna he's not gonna be a world burner or anything like that. But like the odds of him like sinking you completely, I don't think are very high as well. So Dan, with all the weapons, why is Caleb going so low? Just because I think so. This is a great observation too, because there's an obvious discrepancy in where the weapons are being taken compared to where Caleb is. And now that is also just because like quarterbacks in best ball at least are maybe the best way to say it is like you know what? We're gonna take Jake Ferguson because that is one of my guys this year. Anyway, even in your home leagues and stuff too, the discrepancy is large. And I think it's just because people are wanting to get the number one option in that Chicago offense. Just because they do think the most of Caleb. Now, Caleb, I think for the reason why he goes so late is because people just don't know exactly what to think of a rookie quarterback on a team that historically has not had a 4,000-yard passer. Now, could he do that? Absolutely. I think there's too many questions that you can ask of Caleb Williams to confidently take him higher than where he goes in drafts. So it is at least noteworthy to be like, wow, why is there such a large discrepancy between his weapons and where he goes? But at the same time, I think it is also just kind of fantasy. It's the fantasy world that has always just kind of downplayed rookie quarterbacks. Like Jaden Daniels, quarterback 10, even though he has rushing upside, like and a lot of it. Graham, is anchor running back the way to go? That's preferably what I like to do. I like to go anchor, just because then I can load up on pass catchers and stuff like that. But in home leagues, it's a little bit different. I find myself actually kind of going 2 running backs majority of the time, but it's not like first and second round. It's usually like first and third, or even like first and fourth, depending on the player. So anchor, you can anchor it. I've had success in anchoring, teams with a running back. So on the clock again, gosh, Burrow is sliding a ways, but at the same time, we could use just one more receiver. I think we're gonna queue up Josh Palmer. I don't mind the running backs there either. We maybe could have taken Burrow since we have T. Nah, it is what it is. That wasn't with Richardson. I didn't really need to push another quarterback. David, what's up? I'm thinking about making a waiver move in my home league, half PPR, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, wanting to drop Marshawn Lloyd for either Braylon Allen, Polk, Wicks. Thoughts? I would do that for Polk. That one is pretty easy for me. Polk, I think, is more of a stash. I don't think you're necessarily going to get a lot out of him right away this year, but I think by season's end, he could be the wide receiver 1 for the Patriots. Dave on YouTube, what's the best pick for a 10-man PPR format? I was thinking Wilson and Gibbs. I think at the end, it would be Garrett Wilson for me. Middle, I would say Jefferson or any of the running backs. In the top 3, I would say McCaffrey or Tyreek. In Frozen Gaming, in a 12-team 2-keeper half PPR league, I have Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry in the first pick. Best available is Saquon, Garrett Wilson. Not sure which way to go. I really like both players. I think I would probably go Saquon just because I have enough cover with Jamar Chase, and I have slightly more concerns about Derrick Henry being a lead running back for my squad. So I would go Saquon. But at the same time, like I think you can go best player available, right? And best player, I would say, is Garrett Wilson, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's essentially just what can you get on the come around? What can you get after that, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if there's probably going to be more, running backs that you like compared to wide receivers. So maybe I just kind of talked myself out of going Saquon. I think you should go Garrett Wilson. Wow. we just picked up a huge storm here in Minnesota. Wow, it got dark real quick. Let's see here. Andrews missed practice again, and he had a car accident a couple weeks ago. Is it concerning for you? Not really that concerning, but it does increase the value for Isaiah Likely for me. I think he is going to be more involved this year, which is great. Honestly, it's great for me. Because I have a lot of Isaiah Likely, but oh, sorry, I meant to say I had the 10th pick. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I would go Garrett Wilson there. Would you take DJ Moore? I would. I think DJ Moore could be the one in Chicago this year, and I think he's proved at this point that he is kind of quarterback proof as we are on the clock again. We're gonna go Jerome Ford with Jalen Waddle. We got that kind of Miami Cleveland stack thing going there. So back to DJ Moore, I would, because again, I think he is the one in Chicago. So all right. So far through this draft, it has been, we got a slide on Anthony Richardson. I like the receivers that we have, right? T. Higgins and Terry and Evans and Waddle, starting with Brees. I'm kind of a sneaky fan of this team so far. Now it's just about landing the plane, right? That at this point, still finding value, but finding upside, building out the team a little bit more. But I would say it's a really, really good start so far. How about Gibbs? I guess like Gibbs is fine. I just think with Wilson, like, that he's the definitive one in the Jets offense, right? And with Aaron Rodgers versus Gibbs, like Gibbs will still be good. He figures to be more involved in the receiving game, but David Montgomery is just going to be it's also going to be a thorn in his side, right? Like if it was a complete backfield to Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it would be Gibbs, but since he's got David Montgomery there in the backfield, I think Wilson is the pick there over Jahmyr Gibbs. So as we are on the clock here in about 2 picks, 3 running backs so far, 5 wide receivers. I think we go A.D. Mitchell here. Colts wide receiver, kind of pair that up with Anthony Richardson. I think that's the way that we're going to go here. Unless we get sniped, which would absolutely suck, but you know what? It happens. Let's see here. It is a blowing. We have had some really hot weather, so this storm coming in is going to be brutal. Gosh, and we are getting some extreme weather here soon. Oh boy. It ain't that fun. Yeah, we're going to go A.D. Mitchell here. Demarcus Robinson being an option in round 12. Brother, he's going to like round 14, round 15 now at this point in underdog drafts. He's absolutely an option. In home leagues, maybe probably best left on waivers. But in best ball, where you don't need to, do your lineup every single week because it does it for you and you can kind of like stash them on your bench and stuff. Gosh darn it. I will sound like a crazy person, but on Underdog, like you can track the exposures that you have, like how much you've drafted of certain players. Demarcus Robinson is my highest exposed player this year at like 35%, because the role that he's in this Rams offense and a team that runs through wide receiver sets, it's unmatched. And for the guys going around him, like they do not offer his kind of upside, right? So I'm a big fan of Demarcus Robinson. Any chance you give me some recommendations? I was the 10th pick. AJ Brown, Michael Pittman, Zay Flowers, Reed, Keon, Hollywood is a stash. Saquon, Jacobs, Najee, Ford, Mahomes, and Kittle. I don't think that's too bad. I think the hope is if Josh Jacobs can be the workhorse 3-down back in Green Bay, then it absolutely hits. I think, Michael Pittman and Zay Flowers are not going to lose you anything. But I don't know if they're exactly going to be like difference makers for each team. But at the same time, if your running backs hit, it doesn't really matter if those guys, aren't going to like win you anything, because brother, Yeah, like 3 solid running backs, potentially solid, I should say, because I don't know what Najee could be this year, but I don't mind that necessarily. Let's see. As my second pick, I was thinking Gibbs because of the PPR, so I want to start. Yeah, if you can get Gibbs in the second, that's definitely the way to go. As we're on the clock again, we're going to go with Justin Herbert, pair that up with Josh Palmer there, and then we can target some New England players later on. Really liking this team so far. Maybe we need to grab a couple more running backs, but there will be some that we can grab. Let's see. I'm kind of off of Najee. I'm happy Ford is in the pitch. Yeah, I think that's definitely a positive too. Like, you can benefit from the early season success of Jerome Ford. What is the benefit of stacking players on the same team? Johnny, great question. So stacking players is essentially, if a player, let's say, catches a 10-yard touchdown, right, in a PPR format, they're getting 6 points for the touchdown, and they are getting 1 extra point for the reception, and then the 10 yards. So it's essentially 8 points, right? With the quarterback that throws them the pass, you're getting the quarterback points essentially on top of the reception or on top of the receiver's fantasy points. So it's essentially a 2-for-1. So stacking guys like Herbert and Palmer, you kind of you kind of get a sneaky advantage there because they're not super great assets on their own. They provide some depth and quality and value and stuff like that. As we're going to bring up Jaleel McLaughlin here as our next running back. Denver with who was it? Cincinnati. So yeah, like Herbert and Palmer may not be super great options on their own, but together, kind of it makes them a little more desirable, right, for your team. And the impact isn't as, or the downside isn't as bad then, right, if they don't. They work better together than they do apart, if that makes sense. Dave, thanks, Tyler. Draft tomorrow. Good luck. Wish you all the best. You got this. Nathan, what is your order of these quarterbacks? Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, and Lamar based on fantasy points. I will just give that to you straight out of our draft guide. A little preview for you. I go Hurts. I believe I go Hurts. I need to double check this. I go Allen, Hurts by literally a 3-point difference. You could do Hurts, Allen, doesn't really matter to me. My QB3 is Mahomes and my QB4 is Lamar because I am expecting that this Kansas City offense is going to be back to their usual ways where they are top 6 in scoring. And if that happens, Mahomes is pretty much a lock for like top 5 at the worst. I would say then he's pushing top 3. You should grab Polk. Sorry, that boy is going to be good. I definitely would. He went a while ago now at this point. I love Jalen Polk. Yeah, he almost went 3 rounds earlier. Jalen Polk, I think he's kind of primed to be the second half rookie breakout that we've seen the last 2 years, right? We saw last year with Rashee Rice. We saw the year before that with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Dynasty question. Do I trade Corum in a 26th third for Pollard and a 25 second? My starting running backs are Kamara and Hubbard. I would do that. If you can get the second back for Pollard or the second back with Pollard, I think that is definitely a trade that you should do. As we are about to come on the clock again here, I think we can just really take the best player available. Maybe tight end here. I think we do go tight end. I think we go Hunter Henry because we have that New England Chargers kind of stack then. I think that's the pick that we go with. I know Demario Douglas is there, but we also kind of need another option behind Ferguson. So we're going to go Hunter Henry there. Also wanted to ask if you think I'd be okay with AJ and Saquon. Forgot they were on the same team when I drafted. I don't necessarily think like it's not like end of the world, right? Like, sure, they kind of work against each other in some ways that like it's the run game versus the pass game and stuff. But if this Philly offense can be top 5 in scoring and in yards and stuff, like they will both be just fine. So I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. But I wonder, like Kyron Williams instead, or Trying to think of any other running backs that can kind of go at the end of the first. Jonathan Taylor is usually there too. Maybe one of those guys would have been better, but again, I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. Think they get rid of the tush push? No, but at the same time, I don't know if it's essentially going to be as formidable as it was, just because Jason Kelce is gone now. And by the way, we are going to take DeMarcus Robinson because that is my guy. I don't know if they're just going to rely on it as much as they did, right? You lose Jason Kelce, you have a Saquon Barkley in the backfield, right? Like in the past couple of years, like you had a Miles Sanders who still put up double-digit rushing touchdowns, but Miles Sanders is not Saquon Barkley. DeAndre Swift is not Saquon Barkley, right? Like you've got a difference maker in the backfield. So it's not necessarily that they are going to completely get rid of it, but I don't know if it's necessarily something that we can bank on for Jalen Hurts. Like I think he still pushes double-digit rushing touchdowns. I just don't know if we're going to see like 13, 15 like we have seen the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, we made DeMarcus Robinson the pick there just because, again, his upside for this late in the draft, I don't know who can provide that. And I think we are pretty much done at receiver here. So we can just start to kind of fill out the rest of our team here. I'm just going to queue up a bunch of players, right? Drake May in that Chargers kind of New England game that we've been kind of building up. Daniel Jones in Indy and the Giants. Looking at running backs, we can do a Tyrone Tracy. I'm also kind of a fan of, let's see here. Where did he go? Maybe he went already. Looks like he did. Justice Hill. Maybe I missed it. I like Justice Hill in this range too. Gosh, how early did Justice Hill go? Oh, there he is, right? Dude, Nick Chubb fell. Oh, man. How late is... That was almost 40 picks after. Jeez. Yeah. At that point, take the shot. Take the shot on Nick Chubb. So yeah, let's keep queuing up some players here. We can do a Theo Johnson, another Giants. We can do, I think that's really all that we should be kind of looking for here. Don't know if we're going to be able to get Tyrone Tracy. If he makes it there, I think that's going to be our pick. Trying to think who else we could look at. We could also do like a Kobe Parkinson because we have a Cardinal. We have DeMarcus Robinson. We can do a Kobe Parkinson to kind of keep building that out. So it was hard for me to think about drafting Kyron over Williams since the ADP wasn't there. Also heard Saquon will be trying out as being a receiving back. I think that's true, but we just have not seen Philly running backs be good in receiving roles in that Philly offense, just because I don't think there is a substantial receiving role for the running backs in that offense. So that being said, though, Saquon is built different. He is different than any of the running backs that they have. And this is a little bit of a different offense too with Kellen Moore. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as we'll take Tyrone Tracy here to get us one more running back. In my home league, 12-man PPR, I took CMC 102, then Marv, London, Adams, Nico were available at the turn. I took Marvin and Devontae. Thoughts? If I were you, I probably would have gone Marvin, Nico, but I don't think you could go wrong with Devontae there, just because we saw Gardner Minshew support a top 20, top 15 season for Michael Pittman last year. What if Devontae Adams is just quarterback proof? Yes, he's getting older, so it's really the age that takes people out of it. But what if he is quarterback proof? Then I think he's just fine. So I don't mind it. I probably would have gotten Nico over Devontae, but it's not the end of the world. What are your thoughts on the CeeDee contract today? Great question. Dude got paid. But I can't say that it's nothing that he hasn't deserved. Oh man, it is green outside. Yikes. He is their offense this year, and they kind of needed to pay up for it. And he's kind of their offense moving forward now. Now they just got to figure out Dak, and once they do that, I think their offense will be set. So I don't necessarily dislike the CeeDee contract. as a Vikings fan, like we just pay 35 for Justin Jefferson every year. So I don't think there's, too much wrong with that. As we are coming up on the clock here again, I think we will go Daniel Jones here. Nope, just kidding. Looks like we will go with Drake May. How about some super late round people to keep an eye on? Great question. I would keep an eye on, let's see, I'm going to put on my kind of home league cap here, just knowing ADPs and stuff. Late round guys, if you want to benefit from an early season start, you could do a Chuba Hubbard. I know that Rico Dowdle is also still going late in your home leagues. That's another running back that, who could be the starter. Jalen Polk is another late round guy. I think you could even look at a guy like Michael Wilson, just in an Arizona offense. Ty Chandler is another great option. There's not many late round wide receivers that get you truly excited, right, for your home leagues and stuff. So I think you could just let them slide to your waivers. But I think those are some of the names that you could look at later rounds. Also, we've never seen Saquon with a good O-line. Let's be honest, a good offensive play caller. That is very, very true. That's a very valid point too. So it's really like, I think the thing with Philly is that there's just such a wide range of outcomes. It can really go whichever way. And I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer to what you could predict this Philly offense will go through. So I know elite tight end is preferred, but it's Taysom Hill, Freiermuth with Hawkinson, both tight ends very late in option. I struggle with Freiermuth. I don't mind Hawkinson as an option, just kind of as a stash. Which, speaking of which, I hadn't heard anything about his status. So I wonder, can't really see here. That's fine. So I don't mind stashing Hawkinson. I'm just not a big fan of Freiermuth. Taysom Hill, I think if your league is super deep, right, like you roster like 12 on the bench or something, like Taysom Hill's then someone to stash away. So last pick of the draft here, we're going to go Theo Johnson, Indy, Giants, kind of play there. So Johnny, Rico Dowdle, or Jonathan Brooks. I would probably say Jonathan Brooks, which will stink though, just because he will probably be out the first 3-4 weeks. So you got to be patient with him. But I think the payoff is going to be a little bit better than Rico Dowdle. All Vikings offense fell in my draft. Dropped to pick 109. Jeez. That is, man. I don't, man, that's a value. I was off JJ as well with Sam Darnold, but honestly, I regret not grabbing. I went AJ over JJ. See, I don't mind it. I understand it, but at the same time, like we saw Jefferson average 22 a game with Nick Mullins. So if there is a wide receiver that is quarterback proof, it's Justin Jefferson, because he is the Vikings offense this year. So Jack, thank you. Very welcome. Very welcome. If anyone has IR spots, stash Hawkinson. I definitely would. I think you stash him if you don't get one of the elite tight ends. I think that's what I would do. Hi. Welcome in. Alrighty. Let's pull up this draft here and kind of look over this team. Quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson, Herbert, and Drake May. Herbert, May, as well as then Josh Palmer and Hunter Henry. That is just kind of week 17 correlation there. Two teams that honestly probably like not super exciting, but it's correlation. There could be something there for us. Again, Richardson, we grabbed AD Mitchell as well, and then with Theo Johnson as well. So very small kind of week 17 correlations in this team, but some nonetheless. Running backs, we started Breece Hall. And then we grabbed 3 down work with James Conner, who's probably going to miss a couple of games. But then we've got Jerome Ford, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyron Tracy as some depth, kind of benefit from early season work for Jerome Ford. Wide receivers here, we got Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin. So a really solid group of 4, right? Waddle, who's probably going to be a top 15 guy, close to top 15, top 20, kind of week to week, but he has got some serious contingent upside that if Tyreek misses any time. Waddle's instantly one of the most valuable players in all of fantasy. Mike Evans, not too old, but getting up there just a little bit. And I think people are going to expect some regression just because of the touchdowns that we saw last year with Mike Evans. We know that I don't want to say he's a lock for 1,000 yards, but he's hit 1,000 yards in every season of his career, right? So it's really just the touchdowns. T. Higgins, a guy that most people are probably going to be staying away from this year. I don't mind T. Higgins this year. Yes, there's a Joe Burrow question mark, but I don't think the question marks are too big to pass on T. Higgins. Terry McLaurin, who is Terry McLaurin getting the best quarterback that he's had in his entire career with Jaden Daniels. And he's the only guy. Why can't this year be a great year for Terry? Josh Palmer, I talked about with Justin Herbert, A.D. Mitchell with Richardson, Demarcus Robinson, one of my favorite late round guys, just because there's no one that goes as late as he does with his kind of upside. Tight ends, so we got Jake Ferguson, Hunter Henry, Theo Johnson. Overall, I would give this draft a B. There's no like serious upside guys. Like Richardson is one, Brees is one, Waddle is one, but like everyone else, I think, they may not finish top 10 at their positions and stuff, but they can be very, very solid pieces, right? Like if Mike Evans can be a top 15 guy, if T. Higgins can be top 25, Terry can be top 25, Jake Ferguson, if he can be top 8, right? James Conner, right? The end of the season tear that he was on last year, like if he can be close to top 15, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Richardson with quarterback one upside. I think there is some room for this team to, be very, very, very strong at certain points of the year. So I'll give this one a B+. I think if there is anything I wish I did differently was probably focus more on stacks and correlating a little bit more instead of just correlating, essentially 3 bad offenses, right? With the Chargers and the Patriots and then the Giants. But I don't think there's too much wrong with that. So that finishes up the draft. I'll stay on for a little bit longer and ask some more questions or answer some of your questions. And then I will then call it a night. Is there any other players that are hurt that I could place on IR? Maybe one with a faster timetable than Hawkinson. I've read week 8 is a positive outlook for him. See, that's the thing with Hawkinson is no one really knows. So I could take you at your word. Someone might come out and say like it's week 4. Who knows? I think really the injured players, right? If we just kind of take a look at the board, there really isn't like, any notable injured players. Like maybe the biggest one is Jaylen Warren. But the problem is like his injury could linger throughout the season. It's not necessarily that like he comes back fully from it before the start of the season. Jonathan Brooks is probably the next biggest one just because he's probably going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. But then when he comes back, he should be fine. If you really wanted to, you could do a Nick Chubb who went really, really late, but I don't think Nick Chubb is really worth it just because the knee injury is too serious with his, with the tread that he has on his tires. Like it's a long shot, I think, at least in my opinion. Kind of looking through other ones. Yeah, I think those are really the 2 big ones. Josh Downs might be another kind of sneaky one. Downs is probably the kind of dark horse or kind of sneaky under the radar kind of one. Yeah, I think that's really about it. Like you can maybe keep an eye on Ricky Pearsall if IU gets traded, but it doesn't sound like he's going to get traded at this point. So I think, so I would say the 3 players you could probably look at. Jaylen Warren, there's no injury designation on Warren just yet, but that's the sound that there will be one coming soon. Jonathan Brooks likely going to land on the PUP list. And then Josh Downs is kind of a sneaky one. Warren and Hurt helps my Najee stock. I think most Najee managers are not, you don't want to celebrate an injury, but are going to enjoy the extra benefits of Najee being the guy in the backfield while Jalen Warren is out. Probably one of my best starts with JJ 106, Kyron with 207. Yeah, that is a phenomenal start. Phenomenal start. Hey, Tyler, I have the 10th pick in a 10-team PPR. So I have 110, 2, 1. Who would you take there? So let's say this. CeeDee, I think there's the top 8, right? So it's CeeDee, it's Tyreek, it's Christian McCaffrey. You've got Jefferson, St. Brown, and Jamar. That gives you 6. Brees and Bijan are the 8. You're then kind of looking at AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson, which I think whichever one of those two is there for you, or one of the top 8 guys, if they slide to you, that's where you should start. With then your next pick, I think you can go in a multitude of ways. I think you could honestly kind of go with Jahmyr Gibbs would be fine there. I think Puka is also understandable. If you wanted to be different, I don't know why you would, but if you wanted to, you could do a Jonathan Taylor. But I think I would personally go one of the top 8 if they're there, but if they're not, I'm then taking whoever's there between AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson. If both are there for you, take both of those guys. But if one's available, take the other one. And then I would look at Puka or Jahmyr Gibbs for your second pick. Did want to ask thoughts on Ladd McConkey, thinking about whether I should have got McConkey instead of Keon. I don't think there's really a right answer for that one. I think it's really just kind of a flavor thing. Like, I like Ladd. I do kind of wonder though if it takes him a little while to get on the field. Or at least I think he gets on the field, but I wonder if it'll take a little bit to, until you see some steady production from him. Keon is kind of the same way. Like he's got the better quarterback with Josh Allen. He's in the offense that projects to be better than Buffalo. But I think there's so much development for Keon that it kind of pushes me to Ladd McConkey in that sense. Johnny, I got Tyreek, Puka, Achane, Lamar, McBride, Terry, James Conner, Christian Watson, Kirk, JSN, and Chase Brown. What do you think of that 10 team? I think that's awesome. I think so your top 3 wide receivers, Tyreek, Puka, and Terry, right? And you benefit from any kind of, development or kind of breakthrough from like a Christian Watson, JSN. That's awesome. Christian Kirk is not a bad option as a number 4 either. Your running backs, right? Achane, James Conner, Chase Brown. I don't mind that at all. I think Achane's is a nice guy. I think Achane is nice. You might hit a point where you wish you had, some more consistency at running back, but maybe that's what James Conner can give you. So I wouldn't say that your running backs are bad. I think Achane's not going to leave your team because of his upside. James Conner, when he's healthy, you put him into your lineup. I don't hate that at all. McBride, I like the elite tight end. Lamar, I like as well. I would give that a nice B+ or like an A- even too. So don't forget about running backs. Running backs get more and more explosive through late round 3 to round 7, or more expensive. Sorry, not explosive, more expensive through round 3 to round 7. This is very, very true. Dave, appreciate it, of course. Love the dog too in the picture. It's a cute little dog. Any more questions? I'll stay on for 2 more minutes, and at 8 o'clock, I will call it good for me. So ask away any of your other questions. Otherwise, I will just say, if you have not drafted yet, check out our 2024 draft guide. It has rankings and stat projections on over 240 players from each of us. Fella, you get Lucas's, you get Cam's, you get mine, but then you get the consensus ranks too that you can use just to draft off of. We give you the stats essentially just to show you that like we don't just throw this together just on a whim, that like we go through stats, we go through film, and that these projections have more weight behind it than just some numbers on your screen, right? So you get those, you get risk and upside and consistency scores as well, how consistent a player can be, what's the risk with the player, what's the upside with the player. You get all of that, and it's everything that you need really to dominate your drafts. So check that out, fellasdraftguide.com. If you want to get the draft guide for free, you can use our code fellas on Underdog. We will get your email from Underdog, so we can then send you the draft guide for absolutely free. So again, just use the code fellas and you can get the draft guide for free. Kmet or Musgrave, if you miss the top tight ends, I would go Musgrave just because I'm not a fan of Cole Kmet, and at least Musgrave has, some like week to week upside just being in Green Bay in an offense that'll probably spread the ball out. If that's, I would go Musgrave. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Liked and subbed. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Johnny, thanks for everything. You bet. All right, y'all. Again, follow me on Twitter if you want. I don't know where. There we go. It's Tyler_Plath on X. If you want to follow me over there, you can follow Lucas at Lucas Wenzel, WENCL. You can follow Cameron as well, Camlaw FFF. You can follow the Fantasy Football Fellas Twitter page at FF Fellas, the FF Fellas over on Instagram, and you can find us Fantasy Football Fellas shorts on YouTube, and also our long form podcast content, hour-long content where we do mock drafts, we dive into league winners, league losers, and so much more. If you want more in-depth analysis, definitely go check out our podcast channel over there on YouTube, Fantasy Football Fellas. You can find us also on TikTok there. And if you need to just listen to us on audio, we are also there on Spotify and Apple Music, anywhere you get podcasts, we are there also. So also thanks for the videos and live streams. Also the shorts helped me get into fantasy last year. Happy to help. Glad you got into fantasy. It's a fun game. So, all right, y'all, have a very good night. We will see you tomorrow on our new mock draft episode that's coming out on our podcast channel. Be sure to check that out. We will be live again on Wednesday with Lucas, who's going to answer more of your questions and all that stuff. So next time that we see you will be tomorrow. So until then, stay safe and stay healthy. Deuces.